Three Demons Book 2 Chapter 10 Parallel Paths. After being stuck in a state of chuckling and laughter for what seemed like an hour, Kazuto walked back to his home to rest up after his battle against Creed. He had a lot to think about. He has lost, in his mind, 3 straight battles, one of which would have left him or someone else dead if it wasn't for Randy. But the thought of Randy, of all people, being the reason people are still alive eats him up on the inside. Kazuto has a lot of respect for Randy, but he just can't stand the fact that the amount of progress he has made in just a few short months. He doesn't want to have to rely on anyone. He punches the wall out of frustration. Damn it! I can't just sit by and allow myself to become stagnant. I refuse, Kazuto thinks to himself. Kazuto looks outside his window wistfully as the rain continues to fall as he enters a deep sleep. The next morning, Kazuto was woken up by the shining rays of the sun, having to cover his eyes due to how bright the sun is first thing in the morning. Kazuto plans to head out of town, to travel, and find the other fragments of Excalibur, to become strong enough. However, he knows this isn't going to be easy, especially since he knows at any minute he's going to be labeled a rogue demon. Everyone is going to be hunting him down at that point. Kazuto travels to the outskirts of town. There seems to be a gathering going on around the town's recently built church. Kazuto begins to feel eerie around the church's presence. For some reason he feels Excalibur's presence, but just ignores it as it might just be the church. Kazuto walks past a presence. The feeling becomes stronger as the two individuals lock eyes. Kazuto walks by a man, black shaggy hair, black colored eyes that are emotionally dead, a black priest's uniform with a cross necklace around his neck, and a mole on his upper lip. Even if the two walking past each other had just happened, it felt like Kazuto and the man just had a deep conversation. Kazuto and the man stopped in their tracks. The two already know what will happen, but both are smart enough to know the current place and time is not the appropriate for the battle to begin. The two turn to look at each other. They lock eyes in silence for a short time before the priest spoke up. "Your eyes are just like mine. They've experienced the same pain as me," he reveals to Kazuto, which causes him to become frustrated. "What makes you think you know what I've been through?" Kazuto aggressively asks, but in a way as to not draw attention to the two. "We both know you can see it as well. We've both been through hell for a greater cause," the priest continues. "Come back here when the sun sets and people go to rest." The priest continues, cutting off Kazuto from speaking as he turns back around to continue with the opening of the church. Kazuto grits his teeth, but he knows he has an opportunity to take out a piece of Excalibur. But this time, he has a chance to actually accomplish it. Later that night, Kazuto returns to the church where the priest awaits him. "Follow me." The priest guides Kazuto to behind the church where the sense of tension fills the air. "Even if you don't wield Excalibur, I can tell it holds influence within you," the man reveals to Kazuto. "Again, you don't know shit about me or my relationship with Excalibur," Kazuto snaps at the priest. "Please, we both know about the horrible things those tests did to us," the man continues, causing Kazuto's eyes to widen. "My name is Alistair Samuel. When I was younger, I was one of many chosen warriors to wield Excalibur. God only had one goal, which was to find a warrior to push his message of peace and prosperity." Alistair delved into this divine message before Kazuto eventually intervened. "Oh, bullshit! I saw little kids be subject to drowning, starvation, public execution, and pain not many people can imagine. How in the hell does that involve peace or prosperity? What god would allow innocent children to be taken from their homes and subject to merciless pain every single day of their lives?" Alistair just looked through Kazuto, clearly thinking about his past. "It seems you misunderstood." Alistair moves his hands outward as a golden trident forms in his hand out of seemingly the water from the atmosphere. "Mercy was given to those who sought God's love. Those who fought for God's strength shall receive his love. For me, I was granted Trishula, my reward for following the word of God." He continues as he stares Kazuto down. "Oh, bullshit! All that brainwashing they put you through ain't God's love. It's a bunch of propaganda to slaughter anyone who doesn't follow a strict code." Kazuto screams at Alistair as he runs towards him, summoning a sword out of his arm as he connects with Trishula, causing sparks to fly from the connected weapons. Kazuto flies back before jumping into action once more, the two clashing their weapons against each other, the two seemingly even in strength with one another. Kazuto drops down and places his hands onto the ground. He screams out. Alistair then looks down and reacts immediately to the sharp bones coming out from the ground to stab underneath him. Alistair then takes his free hand as water begins forming around it as he fires it at Kazuto. The water begins to take an orange tint to it as it heats up. Kazuto jumps into the direction of the flaming, scalding water and barely dodges it as it starts to burn his clothing a little bit. He forms a small bone blade into his free palm, rushing towards Alistair. Alistair grabs Kazuto's wrist and pushes Kazuto close to him as he pierces Trishula into his collarbone. However, Kazuto then grabs the arm holding Trishula as he flips Alistair over him, causing Trishula to dig deeper into his body, going as far as ripping the rest of his collarbone out of him when Alistair is sent flying behind him. Kazuto immediately grabs his injury as he looks behind him. Alistair has hit the ground and is not going to give him any time to recover. Kazuto takes his middle finger and flicks a bone bullet at Alistair, causing him to dodge. However, the bullet cuts into Alistair's cheek. That was a distraction that gave Kazuto, temporarily only being able to use one arm, enough time to rush Alistair and stab him in the abdomen. The two men stand there, breathing heavily as a puddle of blood surrounds the two, each other's blood being mixed together. The two men then snap their heads back upwards, looking at each other as the battle continues. Alistair slams Trishula into the ground, causing a water trap to form, trapping Kazuto's feet in the now quicksand-like pit. Alistair screams out again, slamming Trishula into the ground once more as octopus-like tentacles made out of the quicksand surround the two. Kazuto quickly looks around him, trying to come up with a way out of this mess as the tentacles are slamming into him, sinking both himself as well as the tentacles deeper and deeper into the quicksand. Kazuto's eyes widen as his head submerges under the pit. As Kazuto disappears, Alistair takes a moment to catch his breath. He is slowly bleeding out from the wound Kazuto gave him as he just looks at the pit he had trapped him in. Suddenly, Kazuto flies out of the dirt, covered in deep cuts, blood, and dirt as he swings and slashes Alistair across the chest, cutting his cross necklace in half. Alistair stumbles backwards as Kazuto swings his blade, cutting deep across Alistair's face. Alistair then smacks away Kazuto's blade as he swings Trishula at him, closing his fist in the process, which causes the moisture from the dirt and water inside Kazuto's cuts to begin boiling him from the inside out, as the cuts begin spouting water out as Kazuto forces himself to remain standing despite all the pain. Alistair then goes for the head, pushing Trishula towards Kazuto, but he moves his head out of the way, but not good enough as Trishula pierces inside Kazuto's ears and rips it in half as he stumbly rushes Alistair. The boiling sensation still going on inside his body, beginning to cause him to cough up blood. Kazuto stumbles and quickly thinks on his feet, stabbing into the ankle joint of Alistair and using it to bounce himself back up to his feet as he places his hand on Alistair's throat, pushing a bone out of his palm and all the way through Alistair's throat. Alistair falls onto the ground as Kazuto sits on top of him, his hand firmly placed across his throat as the two just look at each other. Kazuto's blood drips onto Alistair's face as he leaves the living world. Kazuto remains there, breathing heavily as he tries to regain his strength and composure, the pain from the battle taking an immense toll on his body as there hasn't been enough time for his bones to reattach themselves. Kazuto rolls over next to Alistair's corpse, looking up into the sky to process what had just happened. Even though Kazuto doesn't feel like he had accomplished anything in this fight against him, he knows he has become one step closer to achieving his goal. End of Chapter 10.